All right, we'll call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. First item is roll call.
Miller,
Here.
Rosato,
Here.
Beck,
Here.
Knopf,
Here.
Chanzit, absent, Barron,
Here.
Wolf,
Here.
O'Brien,
Here.
Callahan,
Here.
Meitzler, Malay,
I think he said he
Ewer?
wasn't.
Here.
Saron, absent, and McFadden, absent. We do have a quorum.
Okay, so we have,
Just 9. Barely.
all right. The next item on the agenda is a reminder to please speak directly into the microphone for BATV. Item number 3 is items to be removed, added, or changed because of the lack of people here and what we had done the last time when we didn't have everybody here. We are going to pull item number 6, ordinance 20-43, limiting the number of video gaming sites in the city of Batavia to a future date, when hopefully we can get enough people here to have a discussion and put this one to bed.
We're going to put that off again?
Shall we set a date for the August 25th, or?
Yes.
Why don't we just vote on it?
Because if we have this many people here and then it goes to city council and then we're going to be voting on it again, or
Well,
sending it back like we
either
did the
way,
last time.
Either way, we'd be voting on it at city council. I mean,
Right.
we can have a quick discussion on it, and if,
I don't know what more I want to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that there really is very much more that wanted to be said. I wasn't against bringing it back to the council. We should have just, or to COW, we should have just voted on it at city council and been done with it.
I agree.
Okay, somebody just tell me if we're going to discuss it or not.
Well, you're not here right now,
We
so
don't
we
know
can't
yet.
talk to you.
We don't know yet. Keep going up and down.
we're not at that part of the meeting yet, anyway.
Are we going to leave it on,
Actually, not-
are we going to leave it on the agenda then?
I mean, it's gotta go to, it'll end up at city council anyway, so
Okay, we can leave it on the agenda.
we can,
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
So, Abby, you need to come back because
you have to,
that's not, yeah, we have consent agenda to vote on first. So we will leave items as is on the agenda for this evening. Next up would be matters from the public for items not on the agenda. Think we have anybody out here to comment? So next up will be the consent agenda. And in Alderman Chanzit's absence, I'll go ahead and read that. The only thing we have tonight is item A, an approval of the COW executive session minutes from July 14th, 2020. Does anybody have?
So moved.
second,
Motion by Knopp, second by Ewer. Roll call, please.
Knopf,
Aye.
Chanzit, absent, Barron,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Meitzler, Malay, Ewer,
aye.
Saron, McFadden, Miller,
Aye.
Rosato,
Aye.
and Beck.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. All right, next up would be item number 6, which is ordinance 20-43, limiting the number of video gaming sites in the city of Batavia.
So, I'll
Go
take
ahead,
it.
Mark.
Yeah, the reason I pushed it back is after talking to several, I know that there were people that were concerned about putting a limit on it because it puts us in a precarious position if somebody were to ask for a variance. So I wanted to make a change where I propose that we recommend to city council that we remove video gaming from our ordinance and allow anybody that has it to be grandfathered in. Instead of limiting it, just remove it from the ordinance.
So anybody that would have it now would keep their license until such time as their business no longer existed?
Correct.
So there'd be no loss of revenue?
There'd be no loss of revenue. Last year revenue was a little over 80,000. 28,000 of that was from Speedway. The least likely to go away is the one that makes the most revenue. So in all likelihood, most of the revenue sticks for years, and it wouldn't be like a shock to the system that, oh, we have to make up $80,000. It would just, it may gradually or may never go away.
I would like to note, for what it's worth, city staff did meet with 2 prospective businesses this week, one of which was a restaurant and the other one of which was an entertainment type of business, and both of them inquired whether the city of Batavia allows video gaming. From staff side of it, we have had no incidents of situations where video gaming has been associated with any police calls for service or any complaints in that regard, nor any complaints to our community development department. And from a financial perspective, it is revenue that we have appreciated being able to put toward general fund expenses. And so staff would recommend that we continue to allow it since we have had it for nearly 4 years, we still only have 7 establishments that have video gaming. So it isn't something that is rampantly being pursued by businesses. And the downside to grandfathering it is that you then give those businesses a competitive advantage that new businesses would not enjoy.
I want to offer that I talked to a business that she did not talk to, who asked the same question.
And I feel like the playing field that we have, especially where I see with what's happened with COVID-19, we are going to lose businesses. That's a guarantee. I just don't see that a year from now that every business that's here today is still going to be here, especially in the field that is the reason why we have video gaming. And I don't know how to say this, the substantive feeling from those businesses is that is one of the reasons why they want to be here, or that's one of the reasons that they know they can survive, is because of that adding extra income to their bottom line. And I also believe that moving forward, if we're to fill up the places that we have or expand any of our offerings in this town, you have to be on a level playing field with the cities around us. If not, they will choose to go somewhere else where they have to do virtually nothing to make income. They don't have any employee expenses for it. They don't have any insurance or liability with those machines. They just make money off of them.
Yeah, but I would argue that, Geneva doesn't have it, and they do just fine. And if that's our selling point, hey, come to Batavia, we have video gaming, then we've got to really up our game, because that's bad. And I just heard of 3 restaurants or 3 facilities that want to add it, so it takes us from 7 to 10 in a matter of a year. If all 3 of those start a business and had their liquor licenses, by the end of this year, by the end of next year, we go from 7 to 10. And I just don't think it's what Batavia is about. I think that if people leave because their business can't survive, then they probably don't have the right business model. And all due respect to what they're doing, I mean,
Well, I think that's
Plenty of
their,
restaurants
that's
survive
their
without it.
choice, Mark. And, that needs to be something that the businesses make their decision on. And I would be hard pressed to go out and grab anybody off the street and ask them if they knew what businesses in town had video gaming. It's, I've just generally asked a few different people from different walks of life that I come into contact on a regular basis, and virtually none of them even knew where they were in this town. Whether they're younger parents with little kids, retired couple that lives in town, different customers of mine that just don't even have an idea where these things are. They're only there for people that want them or seek them out. And the businesses that want them use them as their, incentive to make money. And I don't think it's right for us to leave that on the table for the businesses that already have them and then tell everybody else that wants to come into town, no, you can't have that.
I honestly
It'd be
don't
the
look,
same thing with a liquor license.
sure, I don't look at it any differently than if we were to change a sign ordinance and tell everybody, hey, you have to anybody new has to change their sign, but if you've got one that's existing, you don't have to spend the money on it. You have a competitive advantage because it doesn't cost you anything to put up a new sign or to have a more expensive sign that we would require. So that should not be what we are about, and that's the reason I want
But I
to
don't
push this
think
forward.
that's what makes Batavia Batavia.
But that's what we say, we're saying that this is our competitive advantage, is that, hey, we offer
For
video
the
games.
restaurants. and
For
owners.
us, that we're saying that people are coming here asking specifically if we have video gaming.
As a tool for them to offer to the customers. As a business owner and as a restaurant owner. That's something that restaurant owners look at. They look for a variety of services and attract people into their establishment. Video games is not for every restaurant, and those restaurant owners will not have them in their restaurants and establishments. I don't think that when you look at gambling machines, that's what people come to Batavia for. I think it's just an amenity. That it's an offering. But I don't see, people don't say, oh, let's go to Batavia to play their machines. If somebody wants to gamble, they're gonna go to the boats. They're gonna go to Aurora and play on the boats.
Mike?
I just see this as, in today's world, a survival mechanism for the businesses that have them, that, and it's obviously, income generating for them, but it's also survival. And the 7 businesses that have these machines are responsible businesses. I mean, it was said at one of the meetings, I heard that, I don't know who said it, but they're preying upon like their elderly, I don't see Bob Hanson preying upon anyone, or the person who owns Crosstown Pub or anything. I think they're responsible businesses, and I'm not a gambler at all, but if it helps our businesses in town to be successful, I support that. Just for them to be successful, to generate income, and just a benefit to them being successful is we do get some tax dollars, some tax revenue from that. And that's just how I see it. And again, I know it because I looked up who the businesses are. I never knew who they were. And I'm sitting here on the council, I'm like, who is that again? I don't see them in town, I don't see the signs in town, I don't pay attention driving through, but I just think it's a tool for the businesses to work with it, to help them succeed. And in today's economy, in today's upside-down world that we have, it's hard to succeed. As Alan was saying, some businesses perhaps can go out of business, which is not a good thing for the city. So I would support it, that we let people do what they do. And I don't think we should, and we control who we give this license to also, I believe. So, it's not like anyone coming in can just get a license. Is that?
As long as you have a liquor license for a year, then you can get it. There's no control on it beyond that.
I think we do background checks and that type of thing as well,
Okay,
so.
but we don't have, if everything checks out, there is no control other than a liquor license.
But it gets renewed every year.
Yes, and it's
So-
only a certain type of liquor license, so it has to be an A license, a D license, or a fraternal organization, or a truck stop, and we have only one of those.
I think we've been relatively successful with who has these licenses so far. And I don't see any issues, any real negativity coming from it.
I'm not saying that there's like blatant issues that you're gonna see. This isn't Las Vegas. I get that. I just think that I do see the signs when I drive up and down Wilson. I see them. And I think it's a deterrent to the way our city looks. And we can't limit the signs because that's First Amendment. So
Keenan, you want to weigh in?
I had a same question, I think, as last time. Could the city get in trouble legally by allowing one and not allowing another business, by saying yes to, let's say we say yes to Funway, we say no to Chuck E. Cheese. Could Chuck E. Cheese potentially sue the city for discrimination of some sort?
So the quick answer to your question is yes. So in any application process where the city has discretion to give or not give that license, and chooses on one hand to give one business the license and the other one not to give the license, it would have to articulate the reason why it is not providing a license to that other business, and it would need to articulate a non-discriminatory reason why that decision was made. So in the case of Chuck E. Cheese, I don't know whether, based upon the way that their business is set up, that they would be able to take the appropriate precautions that are required by our ordinance for separation of that area from being accessed by persons under 19 years of age.
And then one more question. I said, do we have a limit on the number of machines that a certain business can have?
Yes, our limit locally is 5 machines. Last year, the state law increased to allowing 6 machines per non-truck stop establishment, and then truck stops were allowed to have up to, I believe, 10 machines. But we have not had any request from the current license holders to increase the number of machines that they have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Joe? Couple of questions. With respect to Chuck E. Cheese, if I was the owner of that franchise, I would take a hard look at what the cost would be to wall off a portion of that facility similar to the look and feel that Funway's got in their area, and that would be very easy for somebody to do if they're looking to add a buck. So to say that Funway would, or that Chuck E. Cheese wouldn't because it'd be hard for them to do, they'd give up a couple of pizza tables. And they'd do their own cost-benefit analysis to determine if that fit their business model. So
Yes.
it would be very easy for the right franchisee owner of Chuck E. Cheese to walk in here and apply for one.
Well, this city council did award a license for video gaming to Funway, and they have an entire floor full of children playing similar games.
Absolutely.
So it's a similar business.
And the way they've got that set up, they're differentiated between one floor and another floor, and they've got a door that slides that hides.
Exactly.
There's ways to do that and
Yes,
set it
there
in a
is.
way that meets all those requirements that would not be cost prohibitive for Chuck E. Cheese if they so desired to come before us with an application.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Mayor, I believe it was you a few months ago, and I think you've warned us several times. Some of the discussions you've had with other mayors about these storefront gaming facilities that come in and locate themselves primarily near senior living facilities, preying on seniors. And the caution you gave to us then was if the council should take action to do something if we want to keep those types of places from coming into Batavia. They haven't been beaten on the doors yet. Maybe that company that's doing that has slowed down their business practices with everything going on and nobody wanting to get out and be out in the public. But what happens when? I took very seriously the concerns the mayor was presenting to us. Mark has brought up a good point. If we leave it the way it is now, for those that have a license now, and I would look a little farther and say, who is already in line for a license, who has already applied for a license, who currently can, there might be some issues there with cutting off somebody who's in process. But the way the mayor presented this issue to us, the solution Mark's come up with keeps video gaming in Batavia the way it is today without some of those other types of organizations that we wouldn't want from coming in. It satisfies both of those, both sides of the issue.
So the way that our ordinance is currently structured doesn't allow those types of facilities. So you have to have an A license, so you have to have a full-blown tavern, or you have to have a restaurant that also serves liquor. So those are the only two type of liquor licenses that are allowed to have video gaming. And so we have actually been contacted by a number of these companies that would like to set up the cafe type of gambling. And when we tell them that they have to hold an A or D liquor license for a year, they've hung up on me because it simply is not, it is not financially worth it for them to pay rent on a place and not serve alcohol, and not have any revenue generated for an entire year of rent just to put 5
Well,
video gaming machines
The
in there.
revenue they would have generated would be from the tavern that they're operating. And
Right.
it, again, it's how short a return on investment is somebody willing, or how long a return on investment is somebody willing to negotiate on? If somebody's willing to sit on an establishment and not get that return for 18 to 24 months, but they know that in 18 to 24 months, they got $1 million waiting for them at the end, they might sit back and say, I can sit back, I can make that gamble and wait until the end. I know where this road's going, and I see a financial possibility to do that. Again, it's all in the eyes and the hands of the person coming in who's willing to take that risk.
There's hundreds of thousands of these machines in the state of Illinois, and I don't know of any instance where someone has done that, but I guess it's a possibility.
When that came up, when the mayor talked about that, I researched some of the areas around here, and one of the things is where those are prevalent, they don't have the same restrictions we do. They don't have the same requirements for the liquor license. They don't have the same restriction on the amount of machines. If you can take the same footprint of property and put 10 or 15 machines in it compared to 5 that we allow, you can make more money. It's worth it to do what they would have to do to meet our requirements. I just don't see that that's a problem here. If it was, it would already be happening. Because we have empty storefronts and quote-unquote a lot of senior facilities around here that if that's what they were trying to do, they'd have done it already. I mean, we have enough open spaces in strip malls around here, Batavia, Geneva, or St. Charles, that they would locate to do that. And because of our restrictions, they don't come here, and like Laura said, they knock the door. Once they find out what's inside, they're done. So I don't know that our restrictions have to change to disallow those type of operations. I think where we're at is good. I mean, the only thing I think would help it or make it even more difficult would be to raise the fees. You know, we've talked about that already.
Al, I would join with what you just said. When I raised the issue before, I had been contacted, to your case in point, that they had called and asked specifically about renting some of the storefronts at Randall and Fabian that are right in front of the Walmart store. And, you know, in conversation with them, I learned that they had perceived that there are one now and another one under construction, senior living communities right behind the Walmart store. And they were within their view, walking distance of the Homestead. So you had 3 that they would put themselves in the middle, if you will, of that particular thing. And where I guess I was going, but then as things kind of faded, there was no interest. I was going to suggest that, you know, for that type of use, that we make it a conditional use within our zoning ordinance, so that if anybody in the future came in and said they wanted to do this, well, the first thing Scott Buning would then have to do is bring them in here before the Plan Commission and you folks, and you guys would make the determination as to whether that type of use would be allowed in any business. I would suggest any business zoning in town, that you would be that would be a special use, and you would have to make the call.
Mike? You wanna-
I said it before, I'm okay with it. I think with the other establishments, I don't think we have any limit on lottery sales. And I know there's some people worried about Speedway. Go in Speedway about 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when the lottery gets high and see how many people are waiting in line to buy lottery tickets. Same with 7-Eleven. I just think that devices, I mean, should we pick and choose? I particularly don't like smoking. I can't stand cigarettes. But I'll tell you what, we were talking about the other day out here, there's cigarette butts all over on River Street. I think to have a tobacco license is $50. Kills 480 million people, or 480,000 people a year. Costs over $3 billion a year to the public in health expenses, and nobody's talking about that. We're making this video gaming an issue, and I think it's definitely a tool that businesses need in their tool belt.
Anybody on the phone?
Marty, you want to chime in?
Yeah, the way that the proliferation that we were initially worried about, it didn't materialize. I know that if there was a preference, I wouldn't mind setting a regulation on the amount, but since that apparently cannot be done, I think the only way if anybody wanted to combat this, if they felt strongly enough, would be to change it at the state level. I've spoken with the business owners, and due to the unfunded mandates imposed by the governor and the current legislature, they need these tools to survive. So I can't support a backdoor limit it that way. I think there are enough provisions in the way that the current ordinance is written. So I'm a no.
Okay. You want to make a motion, Mark?
Yeah, I'd still like to make a motion that we move to city council, the removal of video gaming from our ordinance and allow any, establishment that already has it to maintain their license.
So that would take us to rewrite the ordinance. Would that be correct, Laura? Would we have to rewrite the ordinance that we have?
Yes.
So if that is what you want, then I guess the motion would have to be to have that rewritten and then bring back that ordinance to us to vote on.
Just verify that.
Isn't that what, I thought 2043 was
That
the
is.
rewrite with the limit?
Yeah,
Well, that's what the
I think he's changing it, right? Mark wants.
yeah, because all it was to limit it as what we
Yes.
have today.
right,
8 licenses, right? Is that what
That's
2043
correct.
says?
right. And it contemplated having 8 licenses. That means that if someone left, we could still have someone else substitute in,
Now he's changing it to an attrition, where
right,
you leave,
gone by
now
attrition.
it's down to
So I wouldn't need to amend the ordinance that is before you today. Or you could just vote on an amendment to this ordinance, and I'll just have it changed for the city council meeting.
Is that what you want?
Yes.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Roll call, please.
Ewer,
Yes.
Saron, absent. McFadden, absent. Miller,
Yes.
Rosado,
No,
Beck, absent. Knopf,
Yes?
Chanzit, absent. Barron,
No.
Wolf,
No.
O'Brien,
no.
Callahan,
No.
and Meitzler and Malay are absent. Motion failed, 3 to 5.
Okay.
We have 9 here.
So I would amend the ordinance, and it goes to city council with a
Council.
negative recommendation.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up would be item number 7, discussion of COVID grants for small businesses and nonprofits.
Alderman Beck, did you want to start, or do you want me to tee it up?
I can. if you want.
Okay.
Alderman Beck has returned.
So this conversation came up with Water Street Studios when they were here before to present kind of the new operations and the new model that they're working with. And it had me thinking about how there are a lot of other businesses out there that are having to make major adjustments to stay to stay afloat and a lot of unbudgeted expenses to try and keep their customers and their visitors as safe as possible and comfortable coming in through their doors. And think that we did this really great job with the initial rollout of the small business grants and limited to the salons and retail and restaurants and dance studios.
Bars, dance studio,
and
gymnastics.
Fitness. Under 10 employees. And those represent a huge component of our local economy, and they service a lot of people, and they have to serve a lot of people in order to stay afloat. And so I guess I come tonight with a few questions about how many we've distributed, how much we have left in that grant that we were pulling these funds from, and then if anybody else would feel comfortable with any remaining funds to say other businesses, other business types, for-profit or nonprofit, that are also trying to keep their customers as safe as possible, their employees as safe as possible, if we could extend it to those as well. So that's my little brief introduction.
Lord, do you have an answer on how much we have left or what we have dispersed already through grants?
I do. Let me just bring this up.
Because I know we've spent money on rental of tables, on lighting and umbrellas, and then whatever we had approved, or whatever has been approved or dispersed on the grants. And I don't know that we've seen I don't think we've had an email or anything yet that showed us what's gone out through that.
No, so on the Gateway Improvement grants, we have only, I had previously estimated that we had given 40,000 in those grants. Actually, because some people didn't follow through with later steps, we've only given out 26,000 in the Gateway Improvement grants. So I would estimate that we have about $60,000, which is still available from the balance from the 296,000 that was provided to the city when the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity ended the microloan program back in 2015, and the city council had established that fund for future economic development projects. Of course, we have given grants of $110,000 and also $32,000 just recently. In addition to that, so $142,000 for the boardwalk shops. We gave COVID grants for small business to 28 different businesses for a total of an additional $23,000. But so what remains there is approximately $60,000. At the same time, we should take into consideration that that Kane County has designated $10 million of the $92.9 million that they received through the CARES Act, $8 million for small business grants, and $2 million for grants to not-for-profits. They have not yet developed the parameters of those programs, but one of the things that I might advise is that we could see what and whom, what type of businesses that those grants will cover, and then we can come back and see if there are any gaps associated with that. The other thing that I was going to suggest that we may want to reserve that money for is as we move forward with construction of One Washington Place, I'm sure that we might be able to establish programs that will assist the neighboring businesses who might be negatively impacted by the construction and offer some type of grant funding to them as well.
Do we
But-
know a timeline on the county stuff, on when that will be out?
I would hesitate to establish a timeline for the county.
Given the rate now, it's probably safe to assume we'll be in winter time before any nonprofit can apply and.
So one of the things is, I believe, and Mayor has attended many of these meetings in person, but the CARES Act money is only to cover expenses that occur between March 1st and December 30th of this year. So I think that it will be pretty soon, within a couple of weeks to 4 weeks' time, that the parameters of this program will be established so that there's a sufficient application and award and payment and audit process that can occur within that time frame.
I guess that I ask just knowing that that's out there is fantastic, and but I would say our unique position is that we can act a little bit faster and get a little bit of relief out a little sooner too. So knowing that time is of the essence now, and in keeping people afloat. So, but anyway, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on.
I guess my thought would be, we did 23,000 already in, what'd you say, the 28 businesses?
Right.
For the plan we put together. I think maybe expanding that out to hit some of the non-for-profits. I think, if we were to do another 20, allocate another 20 or another 25, I think I would be okay with that, seeing as we think we have around 60,000 left. I think that there are going to be other expenses, especially as we move from outdoor summer type activities to fall and winter this year, that we may have to have a discussion again about this for businesses we've already helped or businesses that may need help this winter. So I'd kind of like to not spend more than half of what we have left till we get to that point. Plus, if the county can come through and get some money out to people, not just have the money, if we can get that out to the businesses, I think that will help as well.
So
And if we can do it in different stages, I think it helps them even more to be able to, time after time, keep them afloat.
One of the things that would be a question is, what would those funds be used to cover? So when we did the COVID-19 grants, we did it for PPE for employees, and also, COVID safeguards for customers, like the handless door opener or the plexiglass that goes in between people in a service business. But we also allowed the businesses to use it for outdoor seating for tables and chairs. We didn't do umbrellas because we thought that was just kind of a seasonal thing, but tables and chairs were something that could be used permanently. I did receive a phone call today from someone, from a not-for-profit, and what they said was, after I explained what our previous programs had been, they said, we really don't need it for the PPE. The thing that we're really missing out on is the opportunity to hold our annual fundraiser. And because we haven't been able to hold our fundraiser, then what we're lacking is being able to meet the expenses of our overhead. So, if we would we do a program that was for COVID-related expenses? And if it's not for the same types of items that we provided to the businesses, what are we providing the grants for? Or is it just a mere ask, and there's how many businesses and how much is available?
I just worry that if we do it to cover their overhead, that we're gonna get other businesses that we told them that they had to go with PPE and COVID-related cost, say, why couldn't I get a loan for my overhead also? Because all these businesses have overhead, in addition to having to provide these additional services. It is very tough, and I sit there and I think about the nonprofits, and they are definitely hurting because they're not getting the donations. But I know a lot of them are working from home, and I just worry that if we contribute to their overhead, then other people are going to be coming to us, asking us to cover their overhead.
Mike?
I guess I don't mean to sound cold and uncaring, but, you know, we have businesses in our downtown that are struggling, and we're trying to help them, as Alan said, like through the summer months. When it comes to wintertime, I believe they're really going to struggle. And I think we should probably keep some money in reserve for that. And with the nonprofits, I mean, believe me, I know they need it, but they do get donations. That's their revenue is through donations. And so if we're gonna help a nonprofit, as what Jennifer said, not for their overhead, we should help them maybe with their fundraising or something, so they can generate their form of income. But I think what we have is we really need to keep, and people in the community, in our community, do go to these nonprofits.
Yeah.
You know, the food banks and things, absolutely. But we need to also support the businesses, because they'll be on the food lines also if we do not. And so I don't know what the real solution is, but I just don't want to say, okay, let's help all the nonprofits, because we really are going to have a very dire situation come winter. And so I'd back off a little bit on the nonprofits, and I really hate saying that. I feel my wife's going to smack me, but that's, you know what I'm saying? I just think maybe we can help them with their fundraising somehow, with some donation ourselves towards with the grant, towards their fundraising, but that's what they have to do, is get going on their fundraising.
Well, I think, you know, as you say, if they're able to get a permit to hold a fundraiser, they're going to have to take some precautions, and this will be a cost for that. And I would definitely, you know, that would just be along the lines, I'd be okay with giving a donation for that, because that's very similar to what we did to the restaurants, for them to get some things. So, you know, if it was in support, because they're able to get it through the health department, that, I would be okay with that.
Another thing that we offer here is a platform for people to advertise to the community broadly, things that they're doing as a substitute for in-person fundraising events.
Maybe we could invite the nonprofits to come down on
Yes.
Tuesday and present.
Right.
Here's your moment to present, you know, we have a fundraiser campaign going on right now, and, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Alan?
Go ahead.
I guess I was only thinking about offering the same set of things that we did for the first round, the PPP and the tables and such. And in my head have been thinking about the nonprofits that have the brick and mortar establishment that the community is coming to, you know, either for very necessary services like the food bank, or for arts and culture like Water Street Studios, and that, you know, the food bank is giving out, you know, the very needed things. Water Street Studios does need generally people to come to them in order to receive those donations. So that is kind of the balance there. But I also agree that the wintertime is going to present new opportunities to help, because it's going to highlight the new things that I'm sure none of us can predict what is going to be needed in a couple months. And so your staggered approach, I think, would be really smart. And maybe this second wave where we're offering the sneeze guards and the table rentals and whatnot is a smaller amount, that we say there's $5,000-$10,000 in grants available. Maybe it's a smaller amount of money. I don't know. Something to just keep peppering it out there to people that might need it. But
Marty, did you want to comment?
Yeah, okay. Exactly along the lines of what Abby was just going with. I think that it should be a certain allocated amount with a grant dollar amount to be decided under the same criteria as we did for the restaurants. and open it to for-profit and not-profit, where anybody that is customer-facing, be they coming in for the art studio, or even, I know one of the things we had talked about was an insurance agent, and Abby and I got talking about that. And an insurance agent, it may make sense because you may have an elderly person coming in for financial services that needs extra protection. So if we fill the same guidelines as we had for the first round, all of those are consistent with unintended expenses related to COVID, and that's what this response was for. And as a result of it, we're not picking and choosing anybody over another. We're giving the same use of those dollars to all persons, and the public is protected by the use and the installation of that PPE. So I think that would make a win for nonprofits and first-round businesses that were not covered. So I agree with what Abby said.
Is there any risk, would there be anybody who wasn't eligible?
Well, the original, it said 10 full-time employees or less.
Right.
I still think that's reasonable.
Any business or 501c3 with 10 or fewer employees?
You had language in there too about being, what was the language? It was, did it say something about walk-in friendly, or you had customers that came into your establishment? It was worded much more gracefully than that some way. Because I agree, something that, we own a small business in town and we are under 10 employees, but we've always worked from home and our lives have remained relatively unchanged. And so we wouldn't apply for a grant to get extra masks or something like that. You'd want to limit it to something where customers are coming in to see you.
Okay. So the
And I just,
stubborn.
if I could add along the lines of what Abby's saying is customers, I think the definition of customer is kind of key. If you're supporting an entity where the public is going into, that would qualify.
Can you explain supporting an entity where customers are walking into? Like, could you give an example?
Well, let's take Water Street Studios where people are going in there. You can also buy retail at that location, buy the paintings, the sculptures, etc. As was said for the food pantry, those costs where they're serving customers, not paying customers, but customers in need, that those costs are offset with this grant to purchase the same things that are protecting customers at a restaurant, customers at a retail store, customers at the art studio. There's no distinction. It's the public.
And Laura, I found it. It's just on the website. It said eligible businesses must be in the city of Batavia, employ less than 10 full-time individuals, and accommodate customers in person.
You're right on it there, Laura.
Yeah,
Scroll back up. Is it-
it's in the text there.
That text right there.
Up above a little bit.
And basically, you'd just be removing the restaurants, salons, fitness and dance studios, and just saying it's a business, profit or nonprofit, that meets the first requirements.
And it says accommodate customers in person. I don't know if the verbiage there covers like somebody doing HVAC repair. They're going into customers' homes. So they're not accommodating customers, but they're going into customers' homes and they may need stuff for their employees.
And maybe the maximum grant drops to less than 1,500? Or do we want to leave it? up there. I mean,
I agree
I'm
with
thinking
Tom.
$20,000, if we were to do 20 or 25,000, that doesn't take over half of what we think we have. And that way it gives us another chance that maybe later in this year we do this again.
So $21,000 grants is what you're thinking? Or what we did was, we fixed an amount, we made a maximum. Many people didn't ask for the maximum amount because they only needed $436 worth of sanitizer. That's really all they needed. And so that's all they asked for. So do we want to, does 20,000 and 1,000 seem
As a
like?
Maybe
maximum,
max up to 1,000.
yeah, up to 1,000, and then we know we're gonna get at least 20 businesses some help.
Yep.
I'm good with that. I mean, because then again, I think you're right, there are gonna be businesses that are gonna come in, I need $239, that's all.
Right.
And that's the reality of what they'll do. And other ones are gonna need the 1,000 or ask for the 1,000.
The only other major expense that may come up with regard to this fund is the cost of the festoon lighting on North River Street, because in all likelihood, we are going to need to attach it to private people's buildings. And the way that that anchoring is going to be designed, we are using the sign firm that put the signage on the dam to design how that festoon lighting can be installed. And then there will be also, I don't know if we need to establish liability insurance for each of the buildings that we're going to be attaching that lighting to. And all of that as a package, I have no idea what the cost of that is, but I could see where it would be a 5-figure cost. So just to keep that in mind as we are dedicating additional
And that's why I think it's
funds.
good if we leave this round at 20. And if we need to use 5 or 10 grand to get the lights done, if we decide that's what we're gonna do, that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Does that sound acceptable? Joe?
When we talk about who's eligible, does that include churches?
If they have 10 or less employees.
What about civic groups like Lions Club or Scouts?
Do they have a
I don't think that
facility?
they're, I don't know if they accommodate customers in person. I think it's,
With their fundraisers, they do.
sure. I mean, it's up to
And-
you
and that's-
guys who
I'm-
you want
yeah.
to
I'm trying to
include.
look for the worst case. What could we be opening this
Well,
up
the worst
to?
case is we got 20 grand and the first people that get their applications and get to the 20 grand
I
get
think
it.
that's
And,
what's going to
and
happen.
if we have 50 people come in and then there's 50, then we've got 30 more that are going to say, when's the next round?
So what
So
makes
that's
this a
all-
little
that's all
Right,
bit,
I understand what you're saying, I do, but I also think that we can't try to accommodate everything that the possibility of anything happening. I think we just have to say, this is what we have, this is what we're trying to do to help the businesses that are out there. If you really need this, you need to come in and apply for it now. And if it's important to them and they really need it, they'll get their application in.
Alan?
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, I just think, putting it back into perspective, it's $20,000 that we're doing a little bit to offset individual costs that were unanticipated. We're not solving the world problems with the 20,000, but it gives at least a measure of a little bit of security for profits and not profits.
Okay. So are we okay with that as a $20,000 limit, or a $20,000 total and $1,000 maximum on a limit? So we know, basically, worst case scenario, we help 20 businesses, or 20 entities, I should say. Okay?
so the way this was done initially was that people had about 10 or 12 days to apply for the grants, and they had 2 weeks to purchase the item and provide us proof of purchase for reimbursement. So then we can provide you with who was awarded the grant, and then subsequently who actually followed through and purchased the items and got us the receipts and ended up with a check, because that might be a little bit less than 20,000 based on past experience.
And that might take the people that might just be coming and trying to get some money to not apply for it.
Right.
I think that works fine. I'd also like to see what the list was from the first one, because I don't know that we've ever got an email or anything to list that all out.
Okay.
So we can see that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, Abby. All right, next up is item number 8, project status.
I think it bears repeating tonight, in case people haven't heard, that the city is doing an additional brush pickup to pick up all of the trees and debris that were created by last Monday's storm. They're going to start the week on the west side of town, where they ended up with the regular brush pickup last week, and then they're going to work their way over to the east side. If people would like to keep track of the progress of that brush pickup, you can go to the city's website, and under services, there's a category for brush pickup, and there's a link to the map, and green is the areas where they have not yet been, and red are the areas that have been completed.
Looks like they're starting with the north part.
Yes.
Of the west and the east, and working their way down.
Sounds good. Also today, Peggy Colby and I attended a webinar that was presented by the Kane County State's Attorney's Office that explained the application process for the City of Batavia's CARES Act funds. At the end of the day, the city was awarded a little bit more than $1.5 million of the CARES Act funds. There is an application process, and our application will be due on September 4th. And following submittal of our application, the county will notify us that we need to enter into an intergovernmental agreement, and that will be by September 24th. And then between September 24th and December 30th is when we can make requests for reimbursement. The request for reimbursement will be made on 2 different schedules: expenses that the city incurred between March 1st and August 31st, and then we'll have a second schedule for those costs that will be incurred between September 1st and December 30th. On October 15th, based upon those schedules, if there is money that had been allocated to the city of Batavia, but there have not been any requests for reimbursement for those funds, the county will contact us to determine if we have any plans to expend those funds, and if not, they will collect those back to the county level and redistribute them toward additional needed expenses elsewhere in the county. Unfortunately, the county said that they are not going to be following the U.S. Treasury recommendations as to how public safety salaries can be considered to be COVID-related. It will not be just a presumption that public safety salaries are related to COVID. We will actually have to document which calls for service were COVID-related and the actual time that was allocated toward COVID-related responsibilities, such as the time that was spent both by our administrative staff and frontline personnel to adjust our emergency operating procedures associated with responding to a pandemic, things like the Human Resources Department and the time that was expended by those personnel in attending press conferences and webinars to learn about law changes, and the time that they spent to develop different policies and procedures, the time spent on developing alternate schedules so that we could make sure that we had personnel available. And so throughout our organization, we are going to have to, document all of the the different, the ways that people were taken away from their ordinary responsibilities, and when that was dedicated to responding to COVID-19 in order to seek reimbursement for those type of salary expenses. But in addition to salary expenses, we are also able to seek reimbursement for both commodities like PPE that we have purchased, as well as contracts for services that we may also have needed to engage in.
So Laura, will they provide money towards gathering, collecting all that information and documentation?
No,
Because that's gonna be a
huge.
Yeah.
huge. I mean, that'll be as much money as they're gonna give us.
To the
Yeah.
The King County Government Center.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
it's
Just
And
that
it's-
collection is gonna
cut the
be,
amount of money they're gonna give us and then make us jump through 72 hoops to be able to actually get it and justify it.
Right.
it's
It's going to be a tremendous amount of work, but at the same time, it is $1.5 million that is, we definitely have put at least and more than, when you look at from March 1st to December 30th, resources that were taken away from ordinary responsibility and shifted toward responding to COVID-19. It's definitely there. I have no doubt.
Do you know, I'm thinking of other expenses, like, I know we spent extra money for IT services.
Yes, that is included.
Including the commodities, like we bought laptops.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes. You know, one of the things, there is some overlap in what is covered under, we have also applied for FEMA public assistance, and there is a state of Illinois number for the emergency, the declaration, the state declaration of emergency, and we're all registered and we're on the FEMA site. Now, FEMA, under public assistance, will only reimburse up to 75% of the costs. 25% of it remains with the government entity that incurred the cost. Under the CARES Act program, we can seek reimbursement for the additional 25%. So for those expenses that would be covered by FEMA under public assistance, we will apply and then use the 25%. This allows us to have our CARES Act money go further, because there are COVID-related expenses, such as IT equipment, that is not covered by FEMA. And so we would not have been able to recover 0%. Now we can recover 100% of that cost by seeking reimbursement under the CARES Act. The CARES Act coverage is much broader.
Knew they wouldn't make it easy. Couldn't
No.
make it simple
It's government.
and still end up costing us something. Okay, does anybody have any others or any questions for Laura tonight?
I have a question.
Yes.
Talking about the CARES Act and what we just talked about with helping other nonprofits. One of the unanticipated costs related to COVID would reside with residents who have school children who have to improve their internet speed in order to be able to accommodate remote learning. Is there any of these programs that helps offset that cost that residents see?
I believe that that cost would be covered through the school district. I am not sure how the CARES Act money gets passed on through the school district, but I do know that Kane County was very specific that the money that comes to the municipality can only be used to cover expenses incurred by the municipality and may not be given to another entity who might be paying eligible costs.
Because that's, I would be interested in knowing that, because I know quite a few people have had to incur that cost.
Yes,
And we're doing a lot to help our business community, and I really don't hear a lot that's helping our residents. And I'd be the first one to jump up and scream for that, so.
yeah. I'd be happy to explore that if there's any way that a municipality is able to somehow
help the residents.
Yeah. Well, with the specific problem that you outlined.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, I've worked out of my home office for 20 years. I already have the internet speed I need. Some people had to shift and started working out of their home office. They may have the same unexpected, unanticipated cost where whatever they had at home was insufficient. When I first started working out of my house, my dial-up was just fine. But then once I was working out of my house on a full-time basis, that's when I made the switch from dial-up, so.
I have
How long
seen
have
that
you
at least Comcast has said that they will upgrade your internet for free during COVID. So, but we all know that there's probably a point at which that then you're up there and they're gonna
Yeah,
say,
they want
now
you
it's
hooked."
not free.
They want you to be happy with what you got, and then you
Right,
don't want to ever
right.
get rid of it, and you don't want to ever go back.
The introductory offer.
Yep, that's right.
Right.
That's why it's set up that way. Okay, does anybody else have any others? Okay, if not, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Move we adjourn.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?